Good morning and welcome to another lecture. In this lecture, we will discuss categorical syllogisms. A categorical syllogism is a deductive argument. You recall that a deductive argument is an argument that has a conclusion that follows necessarily from certain premises, or it doesn't follow at all. A syllogism is a particular deductive argument because it has exactly two premises and a conclusion. Okay, so three statements. And a categorical syllogism is an argument that is based on the categories. That's why it's called categorical syllogism. Categorical syllogisms are arguments that contain three terms. So they have three statements and they have three terms. Each of these three terms occurs exactly twice in the argument. Let me show you how. Consider the following argument. No bananas are animals, premise 1. Some mammals are animals, premise 2. Conclusion 3, therefore some mammals are not bananas. Notice that bananas is mentioned twice, 1 and 2. It occurs twice. Animals, the term animals, also 1 and 2. It occurs twice. And mammals, 1 and 2. It occurs twice. Now, a standard form categorical syllogism is known as standard, is in standard form when, first of all, its premises and its conclusion are in categorical form. Remember, the categorical forms A, E, I, and O. Also, a syllogism is in standard form when there are exactly three different terms, as I just illustrated a minute ago. Also, as I said, each term occurs exactly twice. And also, the major premise is always stated first. In a standard form categorical syllogism, the first premise is always the major premise. The second premise is always the minor premise, and the conclusion is always last. And another important, very important point is that the middle term never ever occurs in the conclusion. And I'm going to explain what these are. The minor, the major, and the middle term. So to identify the terms by name, we look at the conclusion. So take this argument as an example. No trees are humans. Some babies are humans. Therefore, some babies are not trees. To identify the terms, we look at the conclusion. The conclusion is some babies are not trees. Now, the subject term is babies, and the predicate term is trees. So the rule says that the predicate term of the conclusion is the major term, always the major term. You look at the conclusion, you identify the predicate term, and that will be the major term. On the other hand, the subject of the conclusion is always the minor term. And obviously, the third term, the one that does not occur in the conclusion, that term is called the middle term. Now, obviously, I have to say that the first premise, the premise that contains the major term, is known as the major premise. The second one, which contains the minor term, is the minor premise. So the major and minor premises contain the middle term in different positions, as we will see. But once again, I must remind you that the middle term never occurs in the conclusion. The next concept to understand is something called the mood. The mood of a syllogism is determined by the types of categorical propositions that syllogism contains. Now, the mood is represented by 3 letters. The first letter names the major premise, the second letter names the minor, and the third names the conclusion. For example, if we have the following argument: no trees are humans, some babies are humans, therefore some babies are not trees, notice that all the statements are in categorical form. Now, which categorical form is the first one? No trees are humans is an E statement. The second one, some babies are humans, is an I statement. And the conclusion, some babies are not trees, that's an O statement. Therefore, the mood of this particular syllogism is EIO. Now, to determine the syllogism, once again, to determine the mood of the syllogism, once again, you look at the premises. The first one is an A, all melons are yellow. Okay? So you have A, some bananas are melons, E, and some bananas are yellow things. So the mood here would be A, E, E. All computers are radios, that's an A. Some pizza are radios, that's an I. And no pizza are computers, that's an E. Third example, some flagella are living organisms. That's an E. That's an I. Some protozoa are not living organism. That's an O. So I-O. And no protozoa are flagella. And that's an E. I-O-E. Very simple. Now, next, let's talk about the figure of the syllogism. Now, when you want to characterize precisely the logical form of a syllogism, you need to know more than just the mood. You need to know the figure. The reason is because when you compare two different syllogisms, compare, for example, A and B. Where are they moods? Notice A, all scientists are college graduates. That's an A. Some athletes are college graduates. That is an I. And so some athletes are scientists. And that's another I. So the mood is AII. What about B? Well, B turns out to be the same mood. AII. However, you notice that one of these syllogisms is valid, the other one is invalid. All scientists are college graduates, some athletes are college graduates, therefore some athletes are scientists. And B, all artists are egoists, some artists are Americans, so some Americans are egoists. So you might have noticed that syllogism A is invalid and syllogism B is valid. What makes it valid and invalid? After all, they have the same mood. Well, clearly the mood is not sufficient to determine the validity of a syllogism. Notice that syllogism A, the middle term occurs as the predicate term of the major and as a predicate term of the minor premises. On the other hand, when you look at syllogism B, the middle term occurs as the subject of both major and minor premises. So as you can see, these two A and B syllogisms have the same mood, but a different figure. So, to precisely describe the form of a categorical syllogism, we must state its mood and its figure. The figure is determined by the position, the location of the middle term in the premises. Now, there are only 4 possible figures, 4 combinations. The first figure, as you can see, the middle term occurs as the subject of the major premise and the predicate of the minor. Figure 2, the middle term occurs in both premises, major and minor, in the predicate. Figure 3, the middle term occurs as the subject of both premises. And the last one, figure 4, occurs, the middle term occurs in the as the predicate term in the major premise and the subject term of the minor premise. You might have noticed that when you put them side to side, one after another, you notice that they form the positions of the middle terms form a W shape. And that's a neat way to, when put side by side, okay? That's a neat way to remember the figures. So figure 1, as you can see, goes diagonally from top left to bottom right. Then for figure that would be figure 1. figure 2 goes straight up on the far right side, so the predicate terms. Then it goes back to the left for figure 3, and figure 4 goes diagonally to the right, top right. So any standard form categorical syllogism is completely described when we specify its mood and its figure. For example, when you look at this argument, the syllogism, no bananas are animals, some mammals are animals, therefore some mammals are not bananas, you notice that bananas is the major term, mammals is the minor term, so animals will be the middle term. And when the middle term occurs right here as the predicate term of both major and minor premise, if you remember, that is figure 2. Consequently, the mood of the syllogism is EIO, and its figure is 2. So its complete description is going to be 3 letters and a number, EIO 2. Interesting to know that if we list all categorical syllogisms by mood, beginning with AAA, AAE, AAI, AAO, etc., all the way to OOO, we would have enumerated 64 different moods. And if you do the math, since each mood can occur in each of the 4 figures, then 64 moods times 4 gives you 256 different combinations. Okay. And I hope you like this brief lecture on categorical syllogisms. And I'll see you in the next lecture.